Well, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is exciting and nerve-wracking all at the same time. My name is Amanda Matta. I am, as I'm recording this, I still am TikTok's #1 royal commentator. It is January 13th, 2025, and the TikTok ban right now is set to go into effect in a couple days, so here I am. This YouTube channel is not new, but this is the first time I've ever sat down purposefully to record a video that I am intending to upload directly to YouTube. It's a concept I've wanted to put into action for a while now, and in a way, the TikTok ban might be the best thing that's ever happened if you enjoy long form content because, making videos for TikTok, it makes you get a little lazy. The editor on there is so easy to use. I got really used to a particular filming and editing style where I used a lot of jump cuts. I would just record right in the app. So me just talking to a camera, it's gonna take some getting used to. Long form, not my thing. Maybe it will be in a year. We will see. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, being along for the ride. I have thoughts on what to do for this channel, but I'm not married to any of them yet. As you can see, the video quality is not great. I am literally recording this on my MacBook's webcam. So if we do keep doing these videos, I know I will need to invest in an actual camera. So send me your recommendations if you make YouTube content or video essays or anything like that. We can take pauses. It's fine. I can edit this. I keep forgetting that. This is not my style. I have the thought right now that I'm going to do sort of video essay content, which will pair very nicely with my Substack. It won't be every newsletter, but the topics there that I have lined up for 2025, I think are very compelling. We're going to look into royal history. We're going to compare and contrast the present with the past. Ooh. That rhymed. Some people just prefer an audio-visual medium to reading, and I understand that. I don't want to give up the newsletters because I really enjoy producing them, but I also enjoy producing video content, so we're gonna do both. I'm gonna double dip. I'm telling you right now that's what this is, and I'm not ashamed about it. I actually attended yesterday, as I'm filming this, there was this webinar that was offered by Meredith Lynch on what do we do now? The TikTok ban is going into effect and most likely going into effect. What do we do now as creators? And it was a really great, useful space to be in. It was mostly, I think, all women or mostly women. And we were just brainstorming off of one another, bouncing ideas back and forth. And the consensus of feeling was not sad that TikTok's going away. The brain rot is real. I can speak for myself, not everybody. I will miss TikTok because it launched me into this creator career. I never would have just sat down and done YouTube. That's not, like I said, my style. But TikTok made it easy. I built a community on there of 1.3 million people. It just changed my life. It just did. It was an income source. It was a creative outlet. It was a lot of different things. That being said, it was also a very annoying app and algorithm to keep up with and try to navigate. And there are some things on there that I don't think are doing great stuff to our brains. The attention span, mine even. I'm 29 years old and my attention span is cooked because of TikTok. I won't be sad to leave it behind for that reason, but it does force a pivot, which is uncomfortable for everybody. In this webinar yesterday, we were trying to keep it hopeful, trying to keep it positive, and recognize the opportunity that comes with pivoting away from TikTok. We continue as creators to own our own creativity and own all of our content. So wherever we go from here, it's kind of just the beginning. Like I said, TikTok kind of encouraged some complacency, even now, with the ban still being up in the air as I'm filming this. TikTok as a platform continues to tell us to stay the course. We're really confident. Our case is so strong. Reality is telling us differently. I'm viewing this as an opportunity for growth. I'm going to try the video essay thing. I'm going to try a lot of different stuff. And if it sticks, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. So thank you for being here. We are in my office right now / my beauty room. This is my microphone, but this over here, that's where I get ready. It's a 3-bedroom apartment. There's not a lot of space. We have to double up. But welcome to this new chapter. Today, I thought we could start things out with a video essay about royal motherhood across the generations. This is also the topic of a newsletter out on the Fascinator now. So if you prefer to read your video essays, or you can have it up as a companion piece, make this a full matter of fact experience. You do you. We're going to talk about the shifts in parenthood and motherhood specifically that we've seen in the past couple of royal generations generations, because there has been a story recently about Catherine, Princess of Wales, wanting to spend more time at home with her family and thus rolling back her public royal engagements in 2025. And the reason given for this is that she completed chemotherapy in 2024, and with completing any sort of long drawn out health treatment, particularly cancer treatment, it just makes you evaluate life and makes you realize what's important in life, right? That I think we can all agree on. Doing that and also having 3 young children, I can't even imagine like the thought that has to go into like living every day. So for Kate as a person, don't argue with her decision at all for trying to spend more time with her family in 2025. That's not a luxury that everyone has the opportunity to take, but for her, I think it makes a lot of sense. This also, however, is not a new idea when it comes to Kate. She has approached royal motherhood with this idea, this striving for balance in mind every step of the way. And that got me thinking about how far we've come in terms of royal motherhood. 2 generations back, that was not the case. This would have been unheard of. So today we're going to look at Elizabeth, Diana, and Kate, as well as a little bit of Meghan, but that's a different conversation. And we're going to talk about how royal motherhood has changed across the generations. We can jump into this topic discussing Kate and her personal choices, but that's not really what this is about, right? Because Kate is the Princess of Wales, any choice she makes like this to modernize or whatever, it represents a shift for the British monarchy as a whole. This is an institution where the idea of duty and public service historically have taken precedence over your personal needs. Emotional, physical, family life, like you name it, the crown comes first. That is one thing that we have seen shifting in recent years. Some people do get flack for pushing up against that tradition. Others, like Kate and William, are praised for it. Again, it's another conversation, but there's this whole YouTube channel, so we will get into it eventually, I'm sure. But yeah, so we've had this major evolution now in, British royal public life and private home life. Kate's choices and how she approaches her home life are new to the firm, but her struggle as a royal mother is nothing new. This is something that has affected every woman who has entered into the fold since the institution began in 1066. We don't have time to go back all that way today, but we're going to look at Elizabeth first, Diana, and then Kate. And we will see how the choices that they make as royal mothers impact not just their own family, but the future of the British monarchy. So starting with Queen Elizabeth II, the late Queen Elizabeth, I forget all her middle names, Alexandra Mary, whatever, Mountbatten Windsor. I stuck the landing. I think we can call Elizabeth the first working mother at the heart of the firm. Queen Victoria came before her, but being a mother, being the queen, she hated it. She did not want to have it all. She wanted to be one or the other, right? Elizabeth is the first, I would say, modern royal who we can identify as trying to bridge that gap and balance public life with home life and do both effectively. So this was uncharted territory for the British monarchy, right? It's a patriarchal institution. They prefer, I will say, to have a king and a queen consort raising the family. But with Elizabeth, that's not what they got. She has 2 young children at that time with Prince Philip, and she is faced with the task of balancing her public duty, steering the ship of the British monarchy back into unchoppy waters, and raise eventually 4 children in post-war Britain, where duty and service are really central themes to everyday life. Not to mention, this is the era in which modern media scrutiny is starting to ramp up. You have video cameras in her coronation for the first time. You have reporters begging for access to the palace. We are renegotiating the contract between the palace and the public at this time. When it comes to Elizabeth and her family life, as celebrated as she was as a monarch, she was not above criticism for her choices when it came to parenting. Very notable was the decision to go on a tour of Australia for several months in 1954, leaving 5-year-old Prince Charles, now King Charles, and 3-year-old Princess Anne at home in England. There's a famous image of Queen Elizabeth greeting Prince Charles when she gets back from that tour with a handshake. Her 5-year-old son, you haven't seen him for, 8 months, and you're gonna give him a handshake? Okay. This is something that Elizabeth is criticized for during the beginning of her reign, not being that doting, committed, loving mother. But now at the end of her reign, she's passed away, it's 2025, we look back and we talk about her commitment to service, her commitment to duty, and those are things that we praise her for. So there's a real tension point there, and I think that's worth examining. Listening to accounts from King Charles and Princess Anne especially are very interesting when we want to talk about Queen Elizabeth's mothering style. King Charles in particular has painted a picture of a mother who was physically, emotionally distant, but still did her best. She loved her children where she could, she was present, but he recognizes that that wasn't the type of nurturing that he needed as a child. He talks about this in his authorized biography. It's right there. Charles says that nannies were the ones actually doing the work of raising him while his mother was off attending to affairs of state. Princess Anne has a little bit of a different outlook on this. She also acknowledges her mother was busy and did love them, but when she talks about her childhood, you get more of a sense like, of course, that's how it was. Like, that's what she needed to do. She was the queen. So maybe Princess Anne psychologically didn't need as much of a nurturing mother figure as Charles did. Like, I'm sure that's part of this here. Princess Anne often emphasizes how her mother and father would take the family to places like Balmoral and carve out private time. So making an effort to ensure that their family life was still healthy, making sure that they could set aside their formal duties and engage with one another on a personal level instead of a public level. But still, I'm sure on those occasions, you're at Balmoral for a month out of the summer, but the clock's ticking, there's a countdown probably to the next public royal engagement that you will have to leave your family and attend. Overall, I think Queen Elizabeth's children understand the pressure she was under and the tension that was created by the unique struggles of the first female monarch of the 20th century. They do, I think, appreciate those challenges, but they also can acknowledge, Charles especially, that it maybe wasn't the best for their early years and their mental development. But Elizabeth's choices kind of wrote the rule book for royal motherhood in the modern era, somewhat acknowledging that there are sacrifices that have to be made. If you are at the center of the British royal family, your family life is going to suffer. That's kind of the precedent that is set with Queen Elizabeth II. If that means that your children have to take a back seat to the demands of the crown, so be it. I'm not saying that that's right, but that's kind of where we're at. Then we get to Charles bringing a royal bride into the fold in Diana Spencer. Diana, as soon as she steps out onto the Lindo Wing steps in the 80s, is rewriting that rule book. The palace establishment is not going to be happy about this. The men in gray, they're going to have problems with Diana. But when it comes to the public, and this is a time where public perception of the monarchy is almost more important than any action they themselves take, the public greatly approves of Diana, her hands-on parenting style, and just in general, her habit of pushing back on tradition and convention at the palace. I mean, this starts as soon as she gives birth to Prince William in 1982. She is the first royal, especially a Princess of Wales, my goodness, to give birth at a hospital. Sounds crazy, I know, but at the time, this is unprecedented. The royals, they go inward when they need any sort of medical attention, right? The doctors come to them. This is a woman in the 80s proving that you can be modern and still be royal for really the first time. In a lot of ways, royal motherhood as a concept becomes like a reflection of the era that these women are operating in, right? In the 80s, you see Diana kind of proving women can have it all, and we'll get to that. But in the 40s, 50s with Elizabeth, that is a very different feeling towards motherhood. You're in the post-war era where duty and service are so important, and that reflects in her motherhood choices. So, of course, Diana going outside of the firm, the institution, to give birth to the heir to the throne is revolutionary. She does it again with Prince Harry a few years later, and this sets the tone for future royal mothers down the line. As Diana embarks on royal motherhood, of course, there are struggles. She talks openly about them, her mental health problems, her struggles with postpartum depression, and the public, instead of chafing at that, embraces it. They love this. Here is a royal that is keeping it real, talking about struggles that every mother can relate to. And of course, Diana had unique struggles, being a new mother in the royal fishbowl. But this sense of reality, of being raw and willing to discuss these uncomfortable aspects of motherhood, really endeared Diana to the public. This also becomes a hallmark of her maternal style. She is doing things that no royal mother has ever done before. She's taking the kids on the school run. She's showing up at sporting events. She's participating in races with other moms in William and Harry's classes. All of this gets chalked up to Diana's influence, not Charles. You know, Charles, I don't really want to talk about Charles as a father figure right now. That's a different conversation. You know, he had his mommy issues, I'm sure, because we, just talked about how Elizabeth was emotionally distant. Diana's issues were more about the firm and trying to course correct what growing up in the royal family does to a young little person. She insists on taking William to his first day of nursery rather than letting a nanny do it. She takes the boys to McDonald's and to theme parks. There are so many fantastic photos of them at, I think it's Disney World. Like, come on. She even shows physical affection to her kids in public. She is approaching her boys with open arms, waiting for hugs, even though the cameras are right there. This is, oh my God, you can't, the impact, the legacy of this. She said, I think this was in her 1995 interview, Diana's talking about her boys, and she says, I want them to have an understanding of people's emotions, people's insecurities, people's distress, and people's hopes and dreams. She wants her sons to be emotionally intelligent. Groundbreaking. But like, it really is, she's focusing not on book smarts. Charles' own upbringing was very stoic. He is learning Welsh. He's, going into the theater. Diana wants her boys to have a normal, quote unquote, upbringing and understand what it means to be a person in society. It really is revolutionary from a royal upbringing standpoint. With these choices, Diana is not just parenting, she's sending shockwaves, like I said, sending these ripples out into the future of growing up royal, actively reshaping what a royal childhood can, not should, but can look like. Of course, for courtiers, for the men in gray at the palace, this approach was seen as a direct attack on the palace precedent of raising children. Obviously, that becomes a problem for Diana down the road, but she didn't seem to care. When it came to her boys, she was going to do what she was going to do. This paid off for the monarchy, even though they would have tried to discourage Diana from taking this approach. She humanized them. William and Harry are real people. They are multifaceted beings. They don't observe protocol to the extent that the generations that came before them do. Most importantly, Diana showed that it was possible for royal parents, mothers especially, to prioritize their families while still upholding the dignity of a royal position. There's a balance that is struck here that is much more effective, I would say, than the Queen Elizabeth II approach to royal motherhood. And that is something we see show up again in the parenting styles of Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. So we are firmly in the modern era. 2011, Catherine joins the fold. 2013, she steps out onto those same steps at the Lindo wing. She's carrying Prince George of Cambridge in her arms, and she is going to approach royal motherhood again in a way that honors the tradition that came before her, but also addresses the need of modern life. The pressure here was immense. Nobody really knew what to expect from Kate, but we knew she would have to follow Diana's footsteps, right? That's crazy. I wouldn't want to do it. How can you possibly follow one of the most celebrated royal mothers in history, Diana? You can't. You just can't. And that's why I think it's important when Kate steps out and does things her own way to acknowledge that. There are a lot of choices that are taken directly out of the Princess Diana playbook, but not all of them. Not all of them, I will say. And again, Kate's greatest strength as a royal mother, I think, lies in that balance. Her ability to honor the time-tested approaches of Elizabeth and Diana in their own ways, but also carve out a contemporary style that addresses the needs of the present. The differences really come in when Will and Kate set to raising their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis. There's sort of this compromise that gets struck, and it gets reworked a few times over the years. There is this expectation that the public and the press will be able to see the royal children. Will and Kate, I think, were a little uncomfortable with that, especially after their own experiences with the paparazzi and media invasion into their own lives, the voicemails getting hacked. That, I think, affected their parenting style. Kate is very central to this as a photographer mom. She releases official birthday photos of the children every year. Most often, she is the one taking them. Those baby pictures I love them so much. I would wait. I remember as a young royal watcher, I sat at but in front of a laptop, watching the Lindo wing steps. I visited the steps when I went to London for the first time. The royal babyhood experience is something I think you had to be there. But anyway, Kate releasing these photos, it proved very successful, and it became a way for the Cambridge family and then the Wales family to maintain that balance between their private life and the public persona that they had to step into as a family. And with these birthday photos, just to keep the example, they give us the expected glimpse of the children every year like clockwork, but they also still get to control the narrative. That's very important right now, not just with the 24/7 news cycle, but also the rise of social media. If you are a parent on the internet, every decision you make is fair game for scrutiny and commentary. For me, that's not really my style as a royal commentator, but a lot of people don't have that filter and don't have the ability to check themselves when it comes to seeing another person parenting on the internet. Will and Kate, oh my goodness, so much fodder for critics on the social media pages. It used to be worse, of course, before Meghan was in the fold and she became the target. Think about things like Prince Louis pulling funny faces at the Jubilee, Princess Charlotte guiding and correcting her brothers. We start to project things onto these children. We also critique parenting choices. If you see Prince George at a sporting event on a school night, it starts a conversation about appropriate bedtimes for a 10-year-old. These are things we don't actually know about these children, their parents, their family life. We don't know anything about them. They are very careful in that aspect. But we think that we know them because of social media and the parasocial relationship that has been struck up between us and celebrities in general, royals, etc. Every parenting moment that gets broadcast on social media becomes fodder for public debate. With the Wales family, they also have those live, real-time events at big royal occasions, Trooping the Colour, sporting events, jubilees, funerals, etc. They have mastered, when it comes to those events, the art of selective access to the children. They don't do too many of the photo calls anymore, and when they do, they are super pared back to what William and Harry would have experienced in their own childhood. I think on the children's first day of school these days, there's only 1 or 2 photographers present. It's not a gaggle behind a fence. And the public, the big public appearances, Christmas walks, things like that, they are offset by a fiercely protected home life. Think about Will and Kate in the last few years making the move to Windsor, where they now live in Adelaide Cottage. The sense of a normal royal childhood comes up once again here. Rather than spending your time with your children in a goldfish bowl at Kensington Palace, there is way less scrutiny, less of a chance you're going to bump into someone with a camera phone, and more opportunity for children to have space, physical as well as mental, to grow up and grow into healthy, complete human beings. And I really do get the sense that at Adelaide Cottage, at Windsor, the family life for the Waleses, it's pretty average. They're living a privileged life, but the school runs happen without a lot of fanfare. Kate and William go to the sporting events at school for the kids. It's pretty normal. Family vacations stay under wraps unless the family decides to release a Christmas card photo that was taken on their vacation. We don't get to see all of these private family moments when it comes to Kate and William's kids. Kate especially, I think, is this steadying influence on the Wales family. She stays the course. She and William decide, when to show the children, when not to, and that's really valuable. That's a lot of power in setting those boundaries. She and William made a choice not to let their children's lives become a media circus, and we are seeing that now. We are seeing how fiercely that has been protected and prioritized. Kate is now making the decision in 2025 to pull herself back and exist in that space a little bit longer. The balance is really between candid and controlled, right? We get to see the birthday pictures, but there are no unauthorized photos of the children making it to print or, in a lot of cases, onto social media. It does help that the press knows to toe the line when it comes to the Waleses. The invisible contract is alive and well, but again, topic for another video. So motherhood in general comes with all of these demands, but as we've seen, when you are royal, it has a very unique set of demands. You do have to balance family life with huge public responsibilities when you are a princess or a queen or whatever. But I also think at the same time, it's important to acknowledge that royal motherhood, I think it becomes a mirror to our own era that we're living in, right? The challenge of social media and family life is affecting not just royals and celebrities, but regular people, mommy bloggers, vloggers. That conversation we have only begun to have as a society. But thinking back to, Her Late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her generation was full of women who were expected to put the family first. The working woman thing didn't really exist in 1954 in the way it would in the 80s and the 2010s. So Elizabeth was faced with this really unique struggle of balancing motherhood and her working life and her duty. That kind of became the norm for royal motherhood up until the 80s and 90s, duty first. When Diana comes on the scene in the 80s, we have this larger cultural shift happening. Women being able to have it all. You can be successful at work. You know, think of movies like Baby Boom with, what's her name? Diane Keaton? I love that movie. Women can have it all. They can be in the C-suite and they can have kids. You know, men don't have these problems. Why should women? And the public embraces that in Diana. They really warm up to it very quickly. And I think that is because attitudes in the broader culture were already changing and our understanding of what a good mother looked like was shifting. And now we have people like Kate and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. I'm going to touch on the Meghan of it all in just a second. Continuing to redefine what royal motherhood looks like through the lens of, you know, a 24/7 news cycle of social media. The heightened scrutiny that comes with those challenges, I think, is also being coupled with a conversation about mental health, about boundaries, and that is why Kate's decision to pull back in 2025 is so timely and interesting. It's another conversation on, you know, she has this luxury, not every mother does, and I acknowledge that, but the themes of, you know, broader shifts in royal motherhood, I think also are helping to legitimize her choice to pull back and reprioritize her duties, her expectations of herself, all of these roles that Kate is expected to play. Looking ahead, her choice might just represent, you know, another watershed moment in royal rulebooks. In 20 years, is somebody else going to be sitting here, or maybe it's going to be me, I don't know, writing opinions on how the playbook has been torn up with the next generation of royal mothers? We don't know yet. You know, the decision to scale back your public duties in favor of your private life, I think it will have implications for the palace in the future. Speaking of the palace, let's talk about the Meghan of it all before we wrap up, because I do acknowledge that Kate choosing to prioritize her family, not a new concept. It is new to the Waleses. It is new in the sense that the media has never accepted it so readily before. But there are some parallels here between the choices that Harry and Meghan made. Obviously, there were different considerations when Harry and Meghan pulled back from public life to protect their family's well-being. But their two young children are at the center of that decision and those boundaries that continue to be written. Meghan's journey into royal motherhood really started off with a bang. Right away, as soon as she gave birth to Prince Archie, there was such a stink about her not stepping out on the steps of the Lindo Wing. First of all, she kept it secret where she actually gave birth. It was not at the Lindo Wing, which doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Who cares, you know? But she also decided not to stand there for a photo call 7 hours after giving birth, which is an unrealistic precedent to ever have set for women in general, let alone royal women. This was painted as an outright rejection of royal tradition, right? These royal children are seen almost as property. We pay for the royal institution, therefore we get access to these kids. Will and Kate have rewritten those boundaries. Meghan pushed back on them and she got lambasted for it. Meghan and Harry, especially Meghan, let's be honest, because she's a Black woman, a Black American woman marrying into the British institution, right? They have faced criticism continually for being too private. That's seen as an issue when it comes to the Sussexes. There are also all these conversations about Meghan breaking protocol, and her royal motherhood status just like fueled the flames there. And I think this did play into the couple's decision to step back from public life in 2020. They continue to renegotiate how we as the public get to interact with their kids, and that is totally their own, you know, choice to make. That is their right. This is a radical act of maternal protection, and the British media, the palace, don't want to let her do that. We have issues with Meghan taking this step for her children. Far from being praised for prioritizing her family, Meghan has been critiqued for it. Make it make sense. Can anyone explain that to me? I just wanted to throw that in there because it is important to acknowledge how differently we treat mothers based on where they come from, their social standing, how we feel about them, racism, xenophobia, sexism, etc. But the playbook, I think, is interesting to examine, right? What makes a good royal mother for our time, for time past? I'm losing the thread here. This was just something I wanted to explore as Kate has announced this decision, or it's kind of been announced on her behalf through palace sources. Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to 2025. Thank you for kicking off this YouTube journey with me. Be sure to subscribe, like this video, send it to a friend, all of the things. I'm sure I'll get a spiel going as we get farther into this content journey. Let me know what you thought of this format, of this topic in general. Also, be sure to go check out the companion newsletter on the fascinator at mattaoffact.substack.com. Everything will be linked for you in the description. Thanks so much. I will see you in the next one.